The Institute for Conservation and Restoration in the heart of downtown Vienna. Among the many textiles which are restored here using the latest technical equipment, many have had a long journey to get here, such as these antique Tibetan tankas from Nako. In Vienna they will undergo painstaking treatment by highly skilled professionals before they will be returned to the Tibetan people in the Himalayas, the fabric secured, repaired and restored.
My institute is active in Nako, which is also in the north of India, in Himachal Pradesh, very close to the Tibetan border, where we restore and conserve since 2004 a temple complex from the 11th to the 17th century. We are responsible for the interior decoration and the conservation, and we would also like to focus on maintenance more than on restoration.
Working with these cultural treasures presents a huge challenge for the scientists and conservators. They are constantly making discoveries and gaining new information with which they hadn't reckoned.
I think it's very exciting, not only because of the venue, Himalayan region, and the very high importance of the paintings, but of course the technique itself, because they use different binding media as we use in our wall paintings, and also, for instance, totally different materials like organic glazes, and this is for us Europeans absolutely unique to cope with such materials on walls, for instance.
Since 2004, conservators and scientists have been going up to the 4,000-meter-high Tibetan village of Nako under the direction of Gabriela Krist. The drive along the winding Hindustan-Tibetan highway is an adventure every time. Year after year, the view of the idyllic village is simply breathtaking all over again. Life for the local inhabitants is strictly dictated by the extreme mountains, the changes of the seasons, the village community, their traditions and religion. The fact that Nako has one of the very few remaining temple complexes of the Tibetan cultural area dating from the 11th century is even more reason for Gabriela Krist to be particularly involved here.
I believe that the quality of this temple complex and its decoration quite simply needs our involvement and our know-how, because conservation and restoration just do not exist in this part of the world. Here only local craftsmen and artists try their hands at restoration, with results that are generally not more than modest.
Tätigkeiten heranwagen und die Resultate sind eher bescheiden.
The scientists will take on an important task here. It is not only their know-how that they bring along, it is much more than that. They are actively participating in the preservation of part of the spiritual and cultural heritage of mankind. This has a direct effect on their work. On one hand, the old architecture and decoration with wall paintings and sculpture should be retained. On the other hand, the temple buildings urgently need restoration to international standards. Based on discussions about traditional building materials and techniques right at the site, the Austrians developed restoration measures together with local craftsmen which use materials that have a long history and are available locally. The conservators are repeatedly fascinated by the beauty of the temples in which they are working.
Es ist ein
Yes, it is a gorgeous temple complex comprising of 4 temples built at different times. In other words, it is already remarkable because of its entirety. Then what is particularly striking for this area is the fact that the paintings have hardly been reworked. In contrast to some other Indian temples, here one can really see the paint layers as they were 850 years ago. The temple complex is made up of 4 buildings which were built between the 11th and the 17th centuries. The wall paintings in the main temple, the Lotsa Balakang, are the earliest and the most endangered. No other temple in the entire Himalayan region houses such an art historical treasure. The paintings were done on clay. The pigments are bound with animal glue and are very brilliant. The centuries-old images were cleaned of dust and dirt, and loose paint layers were consolidated. The mandalas and deities depicted on the walls lead experts to believe that these are among the earliest Buddhist works of art in India.
First, one master makes some abbreviation, and then his laborers were coming and they executed in either pattern or different color. And now we try to find out first with naked eye and with normal light, and tomorrow with infrared camera we would like to look after these indications of abbreviation.
With the help of modern equipment, this can be proved. The wall paintings in Lotsa Balakang are almost 1,000 years old, and therefore the oldest in Nako's temple complex. They were done by traveling artists from Kashmir. They are finely worked, and in some spots gold applications and reliefs can be seen. Beside their decorative purpose, they were also used as meditative exercises by the priests. Nako is situated on an extension of the Silk Road. On that important trade route, not only traders, but also Buddhist monks traveled. Over centuries, urgent repairs, which had become necessary because of leaking roofs and earthquakes, were carried out, which makes the conservation measures even more difficult now. I'm in the process of looking for separations in the paint layers. The technique used in this temple makes it very complicated, as the paint layer is not only just colored, but part of a complex structure of a wall in which the underlayer of plaster is detaching itself from the clay bricks. Also, there are other problems of conservation and restoration which we think we have managed to solve pretty well so far. And of course one has to improvise a lot. Improvisation is also necessary when it comes to the electricity supply. We work with our own generators, but then the diesel runs out. Also, transportation is a real challenge. But this makes it all the more fun when one can see that the results are successful and we can get things to work. And the locals are happy with the results. Deep cracks in the temple walls constantly handicap the work of the specialists. Precise documentation and digital mapping of the wall surfaces are helpful here. It's a real help, and it's especially important for planning future restoration campaigns, because based on the information I am collecting, I can then calculate how long one will need to accomplish a successful restoration. The second largest temple in the complex is Lakang Gongma, probably dating back to the 12th century. In the course of its restoration, it received a new mud roof, all made in the traditional construction method. The temple's interior is decorated with wall paintings, clay statuary, and painted wood ceilings. These are supposed to represent textile baldachins, made from lengths of different patterned fabrics. As part of a diploma thesis, an appropriate conservation plan was developed using natural materials. In 2002, the temple complex was placed on the World Monument Fund's list of the 100 most endangered monuments. In the meantime, the temples are really unique. All the similar complexes across the border on the Tibetan side were destroyed during the Cultural Revolution. This makes the work for the conservators even more special. Many of them have been with the project from the very beginning and are proud to be part of this significant scientific and cultural program. The greatest problem for the restoration work is damage caused by water. The cracks in the mud roof have allowed rain and melted snow to penetrate right into the interior. Water streaks have run down the wall paintings and created muddy crusts. These have to be removed with great care, so as not to damage the fragile painting underneath. The individual statues represent Buddhist deities. In the center, the goddess of wisdom, Prajna Paramita, who is particularly important to the local inhabitants. All the figures have been modeled in clay and colored with a polychrome layer. For the local inhabitants, the fascinating mountain world of the Himalayas is the seat of the gods. The unique atmosphere is also felt by the Austrians, who appreciate that it is a special place to work. However, snowfalls, frequent changes of weather and earthquakes make this environment unpredictable.
Man sieht bei diesen Tempeln diese sehr markanten Ecken.
On the temples, one sees these distinctive corners, which don't actually play any aesthetic role, but are the buttresses that were made by the local inhabitants in order to shore up the severely damaged walls, which threatened to break apart. We are located in an area of very young mountains, still with upfolding and numerous earthquakes, and the temples have been damaged by many of these quakes. The Viennese research team also initiated the establishment of a museum of local history. At the beginning, it was not easy to convince the locals of the importance of this project. However, gradually, the exhibition space was filled with historic, everyday items, including costumes. Now the museum is run by the Nako Youth Club. This provides the local youth with some additional income and a new field of activity.
I am really happy because our youngsters have just prepared our old tradition new again. So all these things are very nice. Because all pilgrimage are taking interest in these traditional things.
Women are particularly interested in the traditional Tibetan kitchen. They look at the old cooking pots of their mothers and grandmothers with curiosity.
I wish them all success. I think it will go a long way to, for the generation to understand and realize the importance of the cultural traditions which are of value, which may otherwise die out if the youth do not take initiative at the right time. So I wish them all success.
Today, the temple complex is again accessible to pilgrims. It is also an attraction for the emergent tourism industry in the region. The 80-year-old monk Alak Tashi Punchok looks at the unique wall paintings, the ancient mandalas and deities with respect. He is pleased that thanks to the successful conservation and restoration work, they will be preserved for future generations. The Dalai Lama, who held his teachings in Nako in 2007, has also expressed himself positively about the preservation of the Tibetan temple complex.
Conserving and restoring.
All cultural heritage, all this area belongs to that country.
Yes.
That means Tibet.
Yes. Yes.
But now, is it that nation
Yes.
passing through very, very difficult period?
Yes.
And in fact, Tibetan cultural heritage as well as Tibetan rich Buddhist tradition now facing death. It's a dying nation.
The Lotsaba Lakang has also reopened for worshippers. Nothing of the deep spirituality and the special energy which the temple has emitted for centuries has been lost.
The temples are gorgeous, and I believe that we all carry the responsibility for this cultural heritage together, and we also believe that we cannot put the huge financial burden on this little community of Nako, but rather that all of us can make a contribution. And Austria has done just that. I also think that this has been a good approach and can show by example that together we are able to take care of our joint cultural property.
Gemeinsam für unser gemeinsames Kulturgut verantwortlich sind.
Dog